Hi guys, and welcome back to our channel. This video is one that I have been talking about doing since the winter, and it's, I think, finally the right time to do this video. So by way of background, in the winter of 2020, early like January, February of 2020, I did something really stupid. And my son was getting older. He was 14 at the time, and I just figured he was sort of outgrowing, the backyard pool and that kind of thing. And so what did I do? I put it on Facebook and I sold the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel. And then, of course, COVID hit in March. COVID, of course, forced everybody indoors for months on end. It really cracked down on how many people you could have at your house, and it meant for a long, hot summer here on the deck in the backyard without a way to cool off. So if you are one of those people who tried to purchase a pool, even if it was one of those easy up, the quick set Intex pools that they have available, you will know that during COVID, they were either nearly impossible to find, or if you could find them, sometimes people had bought them up in quantity and were selling them at an outrageous price. And so I decided, well, I've got to find some way to keep cool. And I had tried other things, like I had purchased a patio mister, and it was good, it was fine, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't as cool and refreshing as sitting in a pool. And so I decided we had to find some way of keeping cool, having some fun and turning our backyard into an oasis. And so I decided to scour the internet. And what I found when I scoured the internet, I stumbled on a little blog by Hey Wanderer, all about stock tank pools, which, as the name suggests, literally involves taking the galvanized metal tubs that livestock or drink out of and turning one into like a shallow, like a soaking pool. The idea just immediately resonated with me, not only because of the size, the compact size, but also it seemed like it would be a lot less maintenance than with even the easy up pools. They're never quite as easy as it seems, I have found, to get the chemistry right and keep the water clear and so on and so forth. And so I decided, yep, that's what I want to do. Well, good luck, because last year, again, because of popularity of blogs like Hey Wanderers and like a zillion other videos on the internet, people were buying up these tanks in quantity for making stock tank pools, and you couldn't find them. So I decided, okay, this is the summer I'm going to do the research, and next year I'm going to get on this and I'm going to beat everybody to the punch, and I'm going to have a stock tank pool for the summer of 2021, because I could sort of see last year, I kind of had the idea that this summer was going to be a little bit more of the same as far as being indoors and not really being able to get out and socialize the way we're used to doing here in southwestern Ontario. So this is the story of how I made my stock tank pool. So I started in January, really buying all the pieces that I need. First of all, I watched everything I could find online. I read every article I could find about, the pitfalls and what people had done and that worked and what didn't. And then I decided that it was a project that I could manage with my fiance's help, of course. And I decided to start purchasing all the components. And that's sort of the scary thing, is that there's no exact kit for it, although there are some businesses now. I guess there is someone in Toronto that will sell you a prefab. They will put it together for you, deliver it, set it up in your backyard. But you're buying everything independently and you're kind of putting it together yourself. And that's what's scary. Because although it is a lot more cost effective than buying like a full-size above ground pool, it is still a financial investment. So the first thing I did, though, was get the tub. So in our neighborhood, there was a livestock equipment company that happened to have a 10-foot, not quite 2-foot deep stock tank, and I thought, that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So I picked up one of those, and I ordered it in January. And I remember the day that I ordered it, which is January of 2021. The fellow that I spoke to on the phone said this was his 11th stock tank of the day that he had sold for the purposes of making a stock tank pool. It was crazy. We arranged delivery. I know a lot of the blogs that I've seen from the States say how cost effective it is to do these stock tank pools. And even with the exchange between Canadian and US dollars, there's still a pretty big disparity between the cost of a stock tank in Canada versus the States. Mine, for example, was a little better than $1,000. Plus I had to pay for delivery because I don't own a pickup truck and I had no idea how I was going to get this massive thing delivered if they didn't bring it to me. So it really was money well spent though, because literally they came over in February, they rolled it off the back of their big truck, 2 folks, and they brought it into my backyard, and they just kind of put it into place where the pool was going to sit. Now, in terms of where you put your stock tank pool, you're going to want to put it on a nice flat surface. Now I was fortunate because last summer we had put in a patio paver slab, which I was intending to use as a dining area, but then as I realized I wanted one of these stock tank pools, I thought, no, this is actually the perfect spot for this. So we've since put in another slab in a different area for my dining table, and the stock tank pool is sitting on our patio slab. So let's go take a look at that, and then I can tell you about the process of how we put this thing together. So with our stock tank pool, we were not initially able to get a pool pump to go with it. All the YouTube demonstrations and videos and articles that we've seen had focused on one particular pump by Intex, and just, you know, COVID being what it was and people buying up pools and hot tubs and other things, we weren't able to find it at a price that I was willing to pay. I was not going to pay 4 times the value of something that I knew probably did not have a super long lifespan. So I had initially gone to the fella where we purchased the tank, and I said, what would your suggestions be to keep the water from getting stagnant? Because honestly, I mean, if you don't move the water around in something like this, you are looking at the perfect opportunity for backyard mosquitoes. It just will turn into a giant petri dish, essentially. And what he had recommended, and it was a very good suggestion, was to get a fairly powerful submersible pump that would be suitable for like a fish pond or maybe something for use in an RV. So that's exactly what I did. I looked up fish pond pumps, and I got one that will move like 1,000 gallons an hour. So it had some force. It had definite force, and it was great. It absolutely did move the water around. What it did not have was a filter. So it was basically just your pump with your impeller, and it would kind of suck water in through the back and spit it out through a nozzle. And it did circulate the pool. It was fine, but what we did find was that if you see, my backyard is full of trees. Now right now they're just green, but a week ago every single one of those trees was fully in flower. We have crab trees, we have weeping cherry trees, we have bird cherry trees, and the bird cherry trees in particular produce petals that are like tiny little pieces of tissue paper, and they produce them in clusters by the thousands. So even though we were keeping the cover on the pool when we weren't using it, and we're trying to keep it covered, and we were skimming with our net to remove any debris that got into the pool, when those trees decided they were going to shed their pollen and their petals, there was just no defense against it. All that stuff got into the water. It didn't float necessarily on the water. It kind of soaked up the water, sank to the bottom, and just turned the pool cloudy. Like within 2-3 days, it was just boom, it was cloudy. We tried pool clarifier to get rid of that, and it did not work. So ultimately what we ended up doing over the last weekend was I just lost my marbles, and I said, I'm done with this. I'm not going to fight with this all summer. So I did break down, and I purchased a different pool pump. This one I think is called Summer Fun, and I purchased it at Canadian Tire. It had really good reviews, and then we set about figuring out how to put it together. Now I will say I am still glad that I have the submersible pump for the pond, because what we did discover was that in draining it out, so you see here down at the bottom there is a tiny little spigot. That's your drain hole. So you can imagine, now it's convenient because you can connect a garden hose there, but you can imagine how long it's going to take to drain this sucker if you are only draining through something that's like a 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. It's going to take forever. So what we did was we did open that drain spigot, connect a garden hose, and drain the water off into partially into my vegetable garden and on my lawn. But what we also did was we ran that pump attached to just a generic piece of like black tubing, kind of like the tubing that is there connected to my pool pump, but black. I think it's more designed for household use, like maybe for sump pumps or whatever. And we just kind of, I just kind of held the hose in place, and literally it drained it down to next to nothing in about half an hour. So that pump is a good investment, and I would just suggest that's a great thing to have, especially at the end of the year when you go to close your pool. It will just make the process a lot faster. Anyways, we had this pool, we had this pump, and then we had to figure out how to put it together. So I know a lot of the tutorials on YouTube talk about the Intex pump, and that requires like a 2 3/4 inch hole saw to get the holes in the side of the pool. Just whatever pump you get, measure 18 times and cut once, because once you've got those holes in the side of your pool wall, you are committed. And it's scary. I mean, it's an expensive thing to cut into, and you don't want to screw it up. What we ended up needing was a 1 3/4 inch hole saw for this particular pump and fittings. And it did take some time. It's always, you hold your breath and you're kind of always, you know, hoping that everything goes smoothly, because you don't want to have tons of leaking or anything like that happening after the fact either. So although there does look like there's water on the ground here, by the way, that's just from me removing the solar cover this morning. So everything is basically dry. We don't have any leaks. What we did was we didn't use any silicone or anything to seal it. We simply put the valves in. They come with a rubber gasket, and we put the inlet and the outlet sort of close together here. You can see, I'll try and get a shot in the pool without dropping my phone. So this one here is the inlet. Okay, and there's a black rubber gasket on the back. And then over here is the return, which kind of juts out. And again, a black silicone rubber gasket that comes with the pool. It came with all with the pump, it came with all the attachments and the hose and everything. This seems to be working much, much better. I mean, as you can see, there's a bit of current in the pool, and it's kind of moving around. Yes, that is some grit in the center of my pool. Just stuff that has sort of blown in on the wind. That's not a problem. I have a wet dry shop vac, and a couple of passes with the wet dry shop vac will whip that grit right out of there and will be crystal clear. So I'm not too concerned about that. It's more the stuff that turns your pond, your pool cloudy and green that you have to watch out for. So that is the pool pump. And we are pleased it is working well. It's not dripping. It's working as it should. And you just have to remember to clean your filter every couple of days. And this particular model comes with a cover that goes over the inlet here. For the other side, there is no cover. So what we have done when we need to change the filter or clean the filter is we turn off the pump, we unplug it, and then we use a wadded up plastic shopping bag that we tuck into that return area, so that we can clean the filter, remove this cap without water spewing everywhere, right? Because otherwise it's just a free-for-all and your pool's going to drain down super quickly. So you want to make sure you have some way to block those outlets. That's where in the original videos and stuff by Hey Wanderer, they use those plunger valves here to turn off the flow of water, okay? Something optional you can do with your pool is what we have done here is we've put a heater on it. I won't say we've turned it into a hot tub, although you can get this pool very, very hot. So what we have down here is we've got like an inline filter. So this is the water coming out of the pool and going into our propane fired heater. This just catches any grit. You have to change this every couple of days. This is an on-off valve, so that when we want to change this filter, we simply turn this off again, so that we don't have water come shooting out. We had to buy some hose barb fittings and some clamps. And this is I think 1/2 inch interior diameter black hose. We did the same thing up here. This is the return, and again, on-off spigot with the same kind of barb, and then the clamp to hold it nice and tight. Again, no silicone used on any of these where we have drilled holes. Just everything fits nice and snug and tight, and it's functioning beautifully. So if we come over here, if you follow the cords, the messy kind of cords, this is how we have fitted it up. So the inlet from the pool comes into this pump, and this is a SEAFLO pump. This is the one that was recommended on most of the videos that I watched, okay? And it feeds the water up into this Camplux propane heater. Okay, so it's got valves here that can control your gas flow, your water flow, and your temperature. Okay, the water is heated very quickly. There's a propane tank right here. So basically you turn your propane on, you plug your pump in, and automatically once your two valves are open, once your pump senses that there's water there, it fires up the propane heater and the water circulates in and it comes out hot. And I mean hot. So last weekend, was May 24th, our Victoria Day here in Canada, and we opened the pool. It was 75 degrees, chilly, much too chilly for me to want to swim in. But we turned on the heater. We ran the heater for 3 hours on the Saturday and for probably a bit longer on the Sunday. And on the Saturday, we had it up to 85 degrees, which was beautiful for swimming. And on the Sunday, we got it up to 98 degrees. The water coming out of our outlet into the pool was reading here at like, it was crazy. It was like at 106 on the Saturday, and then on the Sunday when the water had a chance to sort of heat up and mix with the other pool water, it was coming out at 138 degrees. So you can literally burn yourself on the water coming out of the inlets or the outlet. So that's the only thing I will say. You do have to be careful. But $20 is a tank of propane. A tank of propane will heat your pool to a beautiful temperature, I think about twice when you're dealing with a pool of this size. And so far it's been really good. The only hiccups we've had, other than the cloudy water, was just initially getting the pump primed. So just making sure that there was enough flow of water there to get in, you know, so that everything would just sort of kick off and fire up when we turned it on. But this has been a really good solution. So over here, I ordered a set of cedar stairs from a company on Amazon called Things Cedar. I just thought it was going to be easier and more convenient than trying to build some stairs myself. I know it doesn't exactly, you know, conform to the round edge of the pool, but it does the job, right? Over here, we built some chairs or some stools that are the perfect height to sit on and dunk your feet in the pool. So that's a lovely thing to have. And those were just built out of scrap wood that I had laying around in the garage, and the tiles on top, which are kind of reminiscent of the stainless steel look or the galvanized steel look of the tub, those just came from the dollar store. Other optional things, we've got of course our drink bucket here ready to be filled with ice and cold beer for when summer gets really warm. Not optional though is one of these. You are going to need a pool float, and you're going to want to put some chlorine in your pool, but you do have to be super careful with chlorine and galvanized steel because, well, they just don't mix. You don't want to rust your tank, but you do have to prevent, you know, yucky stuff from forming. So I just buy the 1-inch chlorine tablets in a container that you can get from Canadian Tire. 1 or 2 of those in that float. And just watch them every couple of days to see how quickly they dissipate. And that's really all you need to keep your water nice and clear. And make sure, by the way, that you are running your pool pump 6 to 8 hours a day. Okay. Also optional, but I would highly recommend, is a solar cover. Mine is sitting over there over the bench, dripping. It just really does help retain any heat that you do put into your pool if you were doing a heater option, and it also helps keep bad stuff out. You can't imagine how much worse our cloudy water situation would have been if we had not had that solar cover on when those trees were shedding their blossoms. So that's another optional thing. You're also probably going to want to invest in a pool skimmer, fairly inexpensive. You can get them from Walmart, I'm sure. Canadian Tire is where I got mine. I'll probably also order them on Amazon. So let's talk turkey. How much did it cost? So the tank was about $1,100. Delivery was on top of that. So I think I was looking at probably better part of $1,200 or so with taxes and delivery for the tank, okay? The pump is $139. The stairs I ordered again off of Amazon, and optional. You don't need them. You can just fairly handily step over, or even you could stack a couple cinder blocks if you really were desperate for some stairs. Those were on Amazon for, I think, $120, which I thought was good value. Your chlorinator, $5 for that little chlorine float, $10 for the pool skimmer, The piping and netting and all the fittings and stuff, probably about $50 for the rubber tubing and the inline filter and the 2 red nozzles that you see there. And over here we have our Camplux heater and the pump and the propane tank, which is sitting there. And I would say that whole outfit, that's probably about $350 worth. So all together, I think I'm probably more in the neighborhood of about $2,200 for this setup. But when you consider that the smallest of the above ground pools is $2,500 just for the pool, without steps or ladder or deck or anything like that, I feel like I'm ahead of the game. So that pretty much tells you the story of how we put together this little backyard oasis, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing about my experience with it, some of the things that worked, some of the things that didn't, some of the changes that you have to make along the way. I'd like to hear your comments below the video if you have an opportunity, and if you haven't already, don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss future videos. Thanks. Bye.